Privajacharya, Asto Tartatashi Shrimad Nitya Lila Pravishnam, His Divine Grace, Shilabhai Charanarv and the Bhaktivedanta Swami Maharaj, ISKCON's BBD founder, Acharya Jagadguru Patita Pavana Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai, Amala Purana Paramahamsa Samhita Grantha Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam Ki Jai, Nitai Gaur Premanandi Hari Bol. All glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to the assembled devotees, all glories to Sri Guru and Sri Gauranga, all glories to Srila Prabhupada. Hare Krishna. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Narayanam Namaskritya Naram Chaiva Narotamam Devim Sarasvatim Vyasam Tato Jayam Udirayat Nastpareshu Bhadreshu Nityam Bhagavata Sevaya Bhagavati Uttama Shloke Bhaktir Bhavati Naishtaki. Reading from the Śhrīmad-Bhāgavatam, Canto 2, Chapter 4, the process of creation, wherein lies the invocation prayers to recite the Śrīmad-Bhāgavatam by Srila Shukadeva Goswami. This is the third of such verses, appearing as text number 14. Namo Namas Te Stu Rishabhaya Sattvatam Vidura Kastaya Muhu Kuyoginam Nirasta Samya Tisayena Radhasa Sva Damni Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Namo namaste Svavishabhaya Sat. Namo namaste Stavishabhaya Sattvatam. Vidurkastaya Muhukuyoginam. Nirasta Samyati Sayena Radhasa. Sadamni Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Namo namaste Srivishabhaya Sattvatam. Vidurkastaya Muhukuyoginam. Nirasta Samyasti Sayena Radhasa. Sadamni Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Namo namaste Svavishabhaya Sattvatam. Vidurkastaya Muhukuyoginam. Nirasta Samyasti Sayena Radhasa. Sadamni Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha.
Vidurkastaya Muhukuyoginam. Nirasta Samyasti Sayena Radhasa. Swadamani Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha.
I need some drinking water. You give me a Poland Spring at room temperature, but do not bring me anything ice cold. Ladies. Namate. Let me offer my obeisances unto you. Vishabhaya, unto the great associates. Associate. Sattvatam, of the members of the Yadu dynasty. Vidurkastaya, one who is far from mundane wranglers. Muhu, always. Ku yoginam, of the non-devotees. Nirasta, vanquished. Samya, equal status. Atisayena, by greatness. Radhasa, by opulence. Svadamni, Svadamini, in his own abode. Brahmani, in the spiritual sky. Ramsyate, enjoys. Namaha, I do bow down. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto he who is the associate of the members of the Yadu dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. Let's all say together, let me offer my respectful obeisances unto he who is the associate of the members of the Yadu dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. Purport by His Divine Grace, ISKCON's BBD Founder Acharya, Jagadguru, Patita Pavana, Srila Prabhupada Ki Jai. There are two sides of the transcendental manifestations of the Supreme Lord, Sri Krishna. For the pure devotees, he is the constant companion, as in the case of his becoming one of the family members of the Yadu dynasty, or his becoming the friend of Arjuna, or his becoming the associate neighbor of the inhabitants of Vrindavan as the son of Nanda Yashoda, the friend of Sudam, Sridham, and Madhu Mangal, or the lover of the damsels of Brajabhumi, etc. This is part of his personal features. That is part of his personal features. And by his impersonal feature, he expands the rays of the Brahmajyoti, which is limitless and all-pervasive. Part of this all-pervasive Brahmajyoti, which is compared to the sun rays, is covered by the darkness of the Mahatattva, and this insignificant part is known as the material world. In this material world, there are innumerable universes like the one we can experience, and in each of them there are hundreds of thousands of planets like the one we are inhabiting. The mundaners are more or less captivated by the unlimited expansion of the rays of the Lord, but the devotees are concerned more with his personal form from which everything is emanating. Janmadi asya yataha. As the sun's rays are concentrated in the sun disk, the Brahmajyoti is concentrated in Goloka Vrindavan, the topmost spiritual planet in the spiritual sky. The immeasurable spiritual sky is full of spiritual planets named Vaikunthas, far beyond the material sky. The mundaners have insufficient information of even the mundane sky, so what can they think of the spiritual sky? Therefore, the mundaners are always far, far away from him. Even if in the future they are able to manufacture some machine whose speed may be accelerated to the velocity of the wind or the mind, the mundaners will still be unable to imagine reaching the planets in the spiritual sky. So the Lord and his residential abode will always remain a myth or a mysterious problem. But for the devotees, the Lord will always be available as an associate. In the spiritual sky, his opulence is immeasurable. The Lord resides in all the spiritual planets, the innumerable Vaikuntha planets, by expanding his plenary portions along with his liberated devotee associates. But the impersonalists who want to merge in the existence of the Lord are allowed to merge as one of the spiritual sparks of the Brahmajyoti. They have no qualifications for becoming associates of the Lord, either in the Vaikuntha planets or in the supreme planet, Goloka Vrindavan, described in the Bhagavad Gita as Madham, and here in this verse as the Svadham of the Lord. This Madham, or Svadham, is described in the Bhagavad Gita, chapter 15, verse number 6, as follows. Na tad basyate suryo, na sasanko na pavaka, yad gatva na nivartante tad nama paramam mama. The Lord's Svadham does not require any sunlight or moonlight or electricity for illumination. That dham or place is supreme. And whoever goes there never comes back to this material world. The Vaikuntha planets and the Goloka Vrindavan planet are self-illuminating, and the rays scattered by those svadham, or of the Lord, constitute the existence of the Brahmajyoti, as further confirmed in the Vedas like the Mundaka 2.210, Kata 2.215, and Svetasvatara Upanishads 6.14. Natatra suryo bhati chandra tarakam nema vidyoti banti kuto yam agni tam eva bantam anubhati sarvam tasya basa sarvam idam vibhati. In the Svadham of the Lord, there is no need of sun, moon, or stars for illumination, nor is there need of electricity, so what to speak of ignited lamps? On the other hand, it is because those planets are self-illuminating that all effulgence has become possible. And whatever there is that is dazzling is due to the reflection of that Svadham. One who is dazzled by the effulgence of the impersonal Brahmajyoti cannot know the personal transcendence. Therefore, in the Ishopanishad 15, it is prayed that the Lord shift his dazzling effulgence so that the devotee can see the real reality. It is spoken thus: Hiranmayena patrena satyasya payitam mukham tattvam bhushana pavrinu satya dharmaya dristaye. O Lord, you are the maintainer of everything, both material and spiritual, and everything flourishes by your mercy. Your devotional service, or bhakti yoga, is the actual principle of religion, satya dharma. and I am engaged in that service. So kindly protect me by showing your real face. Please, therefore, remove the veil of your Brahmajyoti rays so that I can see your form of eternal bliss and knowledge. Om Agyanatimirandasya Jananjana Shalakaya Chakshurmidam Nena Tasmai Shri Gurave Namaha Shri Chaitanya Manobishtam Stabinam Yena Bhutale Svayam Rupa Gadamayam Dati Svabhadandigam Vandeham Shri Guru Shri Utabharagamalam Shri Gurun Vaishnavam Scha Shri Rupam Sagujatam Sahagana Raganatam Vidam Nam Sajivam Sadvaitam Savadutam Parijana Sahitam Shri Krishna Chaitanya Devam Shri Radha Krishna Padan Sahagana Lalita Shri Vishaka Vidamscha. Hey Krishna, Karuna Sindhu, Dina Bandho Jagatpate, Gopisha Gopika Kanta, Radha Kanta Namostute. Jayatam Surito Pangur, Mamamanda Matergati, Matsar Vasva Padambo Jo Radha, Madana Mohano, Dibyad Brindaranya Kalpa Drumada, Śrīmad Ratnagara Singha-sanasto, Śrīmad Radha Shilagovinda Devo, Prestalabi, Savyamanu, Smarami. In a temple of jewels underneath the desire trees of Vrindavan, seated upon an effulgent throne are the divine couple, Shri Shri Radha and Govinda, served by their most confidential associates. We beg to offer our respectful obeisances unto them. Shriman Rasarasa Rambi Bamsi Bhatatitastita Karshan Venu Smanar Gopir Gopinatha Sri Estuna Tapta Kanchana Gorangi Radhe Vrindavaneshwari Vrishabhanu Sute Devi Pranamami Hari Priye Vanchakalpati Rubhyascha Kripasindubhyevacha Patitanam Pavanebhyo Vaishnavebhyo Namo Namaha Jaya Shri Krishna Chaitanya Prabhu Nityananda Shri Advaita Gadadhar Shiva Sari Gaura Bhaktivinoda Hare Krishna 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 Hare 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 Rama 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 Hare Hare. Namo Namaste Svishvishabhaya Sattvatam Vidur Kastaya Mahuku Yoginam Nirasta Samyastaya Yena Radasa Sadamni Brahmani Ramsyate Namaha. Let me offer my respectful obeisances unto he who is the associate of the members of the Yadu dynasty and who is always a problem for the non-devotees. He is the supreme enjoyer of both the material and spiritual worlds, yet he enjoys his own abode in the spiritual sky. There is no one equal to him because his transcendental opulence is immeasurable. So, from such an authority as Shukadeva Goswami, his glorification, and in these invocation verses, his delineating the actual glorious and supreme position of Krishna, Sri Krishna, as the Supreme Personality of Godhead, are wonderfully and astoundingly presented. So here in today's verse, basically, he's showing the greatness of the Supreme Personality of Godhead's personal feature in terms of how that original personal feature of the Lord is the very reason and source and sustaining energy for all impersonal emanations. And by so doing, he is soundly defeating the impersonalists' claims, all based ultimately on envy of the Lord, hence illusion. Once one is envious of the Lord, then immediately such a person is placed in illusion. In various categories of impersonalism. So Prabhupada begins, there are two sides of the transcendental manifestations of the Supreme Lord Sri Krishna. And so nicely, can someone find for me, by looking in the folio, the use of the word bhavet, imperative in this regard, that's in the Adi Lila chapter 4, where Kaviraj Goswami is emphatically instructing us that we must develop rasa, a relationship with Krishna. Bhavet, one must do this. Bhavet, B-H-A-V-E-T, Sanskrit. Adi Lila, chapter 4. It's in the translation. And Prabhupada is delineating all the different types of superlative, culminative, topmost braja rasas. You found it?
Verse 35.
Okay, go ahead.
I have 34 as well.
Where he's going, if one develops one's relationship as a friend or parent, then one is saved from making friendship with mundane wranglers, because we have the word wrangler here. What was that saying that, like, if you've been through some, like, really bad thing, or so I've been through a few rodeos, right? So who's in a rodeo? A bunch of wranglers, you know?
Yeah, so 34.
Okay, let's leave. Good. If it goes off, how do I just touch it? Or do I have to have facial and fingerprint recognition?
It's not going to go up.
Okay. Anyway, so let's hear again Prabhupada describing all the. This is right from the beginning. And Prabhupada is describing these braja rasas, and then going on to describe the position of the ku-yogina, the non-devotees. Ku-yogi, it's also in another place translated, the pseudo-yogis in the 9th chapter. Hardly am I pleased, Lord Brahma, with the pseudo-mystics, the ku-yogis, or those who take to any type of spiritual practice with an ulterior motive. For the pure devotees, he is the constant companion. This is ultimately what the Lord is leading his aspiring devotee in this material world to come to understand, that only Krishna is the dearmost object of love. You see in the prayers of our great predecessor Acharyas, particularly recommended to us by Srila Prabhupada, Srila Bhaktivinoda Thakur, Narottam Das Thakur, what is it Bhaktivinoda Thakur says? O Kanadu here, you are my life dear, comes to mind one. That all the affection that I've had in this material world to other souls who, in the temporary designative covering of friends and family members and etc., this is all just a representation in a very small and perverted degree, unless of course such relationships are based on devotional service, and then it's a different story. Whether one is a sannyasi living in the forest, or a grihasta living in the home, if he's crying out, "Ha, the name of Lord Gauranga," then I beg to have his association. But ultimately, the devotee comes to realize that everything that he was seeking in these relationships in the material world, and especially it's exposed when you take the devotional service and the friends and family members say, "No, hell no, we won't go," or even to the extreme, "As long as you're with them, we don't want anything to do with you." oh, you were my friend, my family member, my beloved, and now you're... As in the case of his becoming one of the family members, constant companion. So we want to have, what do they call those? BFFs, best friends, BFFL, right? Best friend for life.
Best friends forever. BFF.
Best BFFF.
BFF.
Okay. So that's Krishna. He's the best friend for forever. Constant companion, as in the case of becoming one of the family members of the Yadu dynasty, or is becoming the friend of Arjuna, or is becoming the associate neighbor of the inhabitants of Vrindavan, Brajajana Ranjana, as the son of Nanda Yashoda, the friend of Sudam, Śhrīdam, and Madhu Mangal, or the lover of the damsels of Brajabhumi. That is the part of his personal features. Here is the use of the verb bhavet, which is in the imperative mood, tells us this certainly must be done. Non-compliance would be abandonment of duty. Srila Prabhupada, what service can we do to please you the most? If you become a lover of Krishna. So this imperative is applicable to pure devotees. Neophytes will be able to understand these affairs only after being elevated by the regulative devotional service under the expert guidance of the spiritual master. Then they too will be competent to hear of the loving affairs of Radha and Krishna. So to come to the stage of having such an intimate relationship with Krishna, Cheto Darpanam Marjanam Bhava Mahadavagni Nivarpanam, the core of one's heart must become fully cleansed. Sri Narottam Das Thakur encourages us. Prabhupada was very fond of this song. Gora Mahimna, the glories of Lord Chaitanya, that if one appreciates the pleasing pastimes of Lord Chaitanya and sometimes cries, especially recognizing Lord Chaitanya's magnanimity, his compassion, his mercy, then this process will automatically qualify him to become an associate of Radha and Krishna. One's heart will be fully cleansed of all material desires. As long as one is in material conditional life, strict discipline is required in the matter of moral and immoral activities. He was speaking that is always a problem for the non-devotees. And what is one of the biggest problems that Krishna has given to the non-devotees? The rasa dance. You know, why is Krishna dancing with other men's wives in the dead of night? You know, your God is immoral. One time that was pointed out to Prabhupada by some so-called pious Hindu, that you're immoral, you know, with your married life and everything. Krishna's the only husband. There are no sexual activities in the spiritual world. The transaction between lover and beloved in the spiritual world are pure transcendental love and unadulterated bliss. The aspirant to the terrace of prema understands very well that they must develop the qualities, sadhubhushana, of the saints, the pure devotee. That ultimately elevates or qualifies such a sincere and pure soul to understand the actual adiras that is exchanged between the Lord and his eternal consorts, not otherwise. We see the so-called sex in this material world engaged in, you know, so-called freely and unregulatedly, spontaneously. It just leads to so much degradation. I remember here in this temple, like in the 70s and 80s, to go to 42nd Street, it was out of the question. Maybe go there Saturday night with like 150 devotees, but otherwise, that place was just total trash, and it was all just based on the sex trade or sex industry. For example. So, you were asking the other day, I forget exactly how you phrased it, Jai Jagannath Prabhu, about the hearing of the Rasa Leela. How was exactly? You were like how much and when and who to how and,
Yeah, Prabhupada is saying that one can hear that the liberated, one who is trying for liberation, and also the materialist is attracted to money.
Right.
Actually hear the Rasa Leela.
Right.
Become purified, provided they hear from the right authority.
Correct. Kind of like you can go get the medicine, but you have to have a prescription to go to the state. All the pharmacies are controlled by the government, and unless you have a proper prescription, then they're not going to give you, and it's understood that you're taking this medicine under the instruction, the dosage and frequency has to be understood. So Prabhupada here in this purport in the Adi Leela chapter 4, one who has not been attracted by the transcendental beauty of rasa will certainly be dragged down into material attraction. And this is the fault of the impersonalist. Nye Ravindakshiva Mukti Mani Nas. He falls down from his position of imagined superiority because he's not accepted Krishna, for who he is as the supreme enjoyer, as the supreme controller. There's still some desire I want to be the enjoyer, I want to be the controller, even in the name of being a transcendentalist, a yogi, or even as a devotee. There's different levels of devotees. The Kanishta Bhakta, he wants some material reward in the shape of fame and recognition, for example, for his devotional service. They can't enter into the understanding of rasa in its full manifestation. Thus, to act in material contamination, progress to the darkest region of hellish life. By understanding, and then then Prabhupada this is what inspired me to find this and share this here today with all in the Bhagavatam class. So Prabhupada has just given a little capsule description of all the various relationships that Krishna has in Goloka Vrindavan. So this is one of also the most memorable ones here. By understanding the conjugal love of Radha and Krishna, one is freed from the grip of attraction to material so-called love between man and woman. Similarly, one who understands the pure parental love of Nanda and Yashoda for Krishna will be saved from being dragged into material parental affection. If one accepts Krishna as the supreme friend, the attraction of material friendship will be finished for him, and he will not be dismayed by so-called friendship with mundane wranglers. If you talk with many devotees and how did you come to Krishna consciousness? What was your life before? You find a lot that they were loners, or they didn't fit in. They weren't running with the cool crowd, or they were like,
Weird.
Right. That's actually Krishna's mercy. He's protecting them from, no, this is not for you to be with these people. This is not fit for you. Waiting for the time, increasing your lolium. What is the purchase price? Anxiety. I must have it. Intense greed. Then Krishna is available. So, Krishna as the supreme friend, material friendship, the attraction too will be finished for him, and he will not be dismayed by so-called friendship with mundane wranglers. Wranglers, it's always like twisting, and it's like, you know, it should be like this is the pure intent, but then it's twisted this way, and then ha ha, you know. So that's very nice. You won't be dismayed, and then associating with these type of wrangling mundaners. Finished, done. Krishna, he will no longer have to serve the material body in the degraded status of material existence with the false hope of becoming master in the future. Similarly, one who sees the greatness of Krishna in neutrality will certainly never again seek the so-called relief of impersonalist or voidist philosophy. And what is the core reason for that? Because they're appreciating that Krishna, the person, is the source of this seeming it's for a devotee, it's all personal. What is that? Istadeva Murti, that verse, that the devotee, he certainly sees everything mobile and immobile, but he doesn't necessarily see their forms. He sees within the manifestation that this is manifesting because of the personality of his beloved Lord Krishna. If one is not attracted by the transcendental nature of Krishna, one is sure to be attracted to material enjoyment, thus to become implicated in the clinging network. That's a good way to describe, you know, material illusion, a clinging network. What are the, like I think there was a movie called The Clinger, I don't know, they just, I don't know, something. The Blob, The Thing, you know. Clinging network of virtuous and sinful activities to continue material existence by transmigrating from one material body to another. Only in Krishna consciousness one can achieve the highest perfection of life. So then Prabhupada goes on, and by his impersonal feature he expands the rays of the Brahmajyoti, which is limitless and all-pervasive. Part of this all-pervasive Brahmajyoti, which is compared to the sun rays, is covered by the darkness of Mahatattva, and there was in the material world. So we see on the first canto that Prabhupada had commissioned as the cover, you know, the big Goloka Vrindavan, and there's Radha and Krishna and the cowherd boys, and the Nitya Navadvip section of Goloka Vrindavan, Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda performing the eternal Navadvip Leela, their Sankirtan Leela, in Goloka Vrindavan. Everyone should always keep that in mind. Not that, we worship Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda, and when we become advanced, then we worship Radha and Krishna, and then we throw Lord Chaitanya, Lord, and we don't need them anymore. Thank you very much. Actually, the worship of Gaur Nitai is can go both ways, that you become able and fit to worship Radha and Krishna, and then you can actually really understand who Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda are, and then the worship of Lord Chaitanya and Lord Nityananda becomes on a very high and advanced platform. Therefore, Narottam Das Thakur says, one who understands that Navadvip is completely non-different than Vrindavan ultimately lives in Vrindavan. No difference. And Prabhupada is asked, put the question, if one leaves their body in Mayapur, is there no difference? Completely identical. So the Goloka Vrindavan, as the supreme planet, is the source of all the Vaikunthas. And here Prabhupada gives a more insight into how Krishna is a problem for the kuyogis, for the non-devotees. The mundaners have insufficient information of even the mundane sky, so what can they think of the spiritual sky? Therefore, the mundaners are always far, far away from him. Even if in the future, speed of the mind, speed of the wind, still very, very far away they will remain. So, mysterious problem. They can't figure out, nor will they ever be able to figure out And then Prabhupada brings it back to reality. But for the devotees, the Lord will always be available as an associate. Right? An associate right there. You know, you come into the restaurant, you all sit down and you're the head man. I would like, full tally for me and all my associates here, please. Right there, my right-hand man. Associate, associated with me. Far away, only a myth. In the spiritual sky, his opulence is immeasurable. The Lord resides in all the spiritual planets, the innumerable Vaikuntha planets, by expanding his plenary portions, along with his liberated devotee associates. Now here, this is the reason why impersonalism and Mayavad tendency is such a disaster. The impersonalists want to merge in the existence of the Lord. So they couldn't be happy by becoming the biggest man in the material world. All right, so you know what? I'm not going to surrender to God and become his servant. So let me merge with God and become one with God. Let me become God myself. And because of their envy of Krishna as a personality, their topmost conception is just merging into the Brahma Jyoti. They are allowed to merge as one of the spiritual sparks. They have no qualifications for becoming an associate. Like Kamsa was always thinking of Krishna but unfavorably, and he merged. His soul was seen to come out and merge into the body of the Lord. Shishupal, like that. They don't have qualification for becoming an intimate associate of the Lord, because they didn't cultivate pure devotional service because of not getting free of their envy. The Lord Svadam, and Prabhupada directs us to the 6th verse of the 15th chapter, Krishna's Purushottam Yoga chapter, does not require any sunlight or moonlight or electricity for illumination. That Dham or place is supreme, and whoever goes there never comes back to this material world. And it's interesting, in the second part of the purport, this is always nice to hear and to read, and this is good for helping to emphasize to newcomers. One should be captivated by this information. He should desire to transfer himself to that eternal world and extricate himself from this, false reflection of reality. For one who is too much attached to this material world, it is very difficult to cut that attachment. But if we take to Krishna consciousness, there is a chance of gradually becoming detached. And how do you do that? One has to, not maybe, one has to associate himself with devotees, those who are in Krishna consciousness. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness. It was famous that Yamuna Devi and Dinatarani had made their own ladies' ashram near Eugene, Oregon, which was quite a distance from San Francisco and what to speak of Los Angeles, and they were being criticized for, as things were back in those days, that either you're in the temple or you're a fringy or you're blooped or you're you're not a devotee, something like that, Very simple, very easy. Either you're in or you're out, And so things reached kind of a head, and they were called to have a meeting with Prabhupada in Los Angeles in his last visit in the summer of 1976. And, Prabhupada is not one to be, swayed by, whoever and whatever, no matter how many of them there are. He'll always see things for what they are, actually. And he very much approved of what they were doing. And in terms of their association, it was so congenial for each other. He said, you two should stay together for the rest of your lives. And he said this, society can be 2 or 200. If 200 is unfavorable and 2 is favorable, then huh? But of course, in terms of Prabhupada's International Society for Krishna Consciousness, which is his offering to his spiritual master and to the eternal disciplic succession of pure devotees, this association of pure Vaishnavas is an eternal existing reality. And sometimes it's manifest, sometimes goes underground or hidden from view for various reasons. In the autumn season, sometimes the mountain streams give forth clear water, and sometimes they stop for various reasons. And just like the pure devotees, the spiritual master, sometimes he speaks pure knowledge, and other times he is silent. So anyway, a question was asked by Giriraj Swami, who was still brahmachari when Prabhupada was present in his last year in 1977. He took sannyas the very next year, I believe, by his dear godbrother and eternal friend Tamal Krishna Maharaj. Prabhupada, you're here, and your settling of disputes and arguments is taken as final and agreed upon by all parties. What to do when you're gone and we can't reach an agreement? Prabhupada said, you are a senior member of the society. You should work for the correction, but under no circumstances should you leave. So as the International Society for Krishna Consciousness is Prabhupada's own creation, is a very, very powerful river of bhakti forcefully flowing down from the lotus feet of the divine couple, Lord Chaitanya and all the predecessor acharyas. And in a powerfully flowing river, could be multi-currents in the overall downward flow to the ocean that is Krishna. But the river has the great power to purify itself of any contaminations or anything that goes wrong. Or even if there's they try to dam it up or something, the river is so forceful that it's going to break that dam and again find its natural course to keep flowing towards the ocean. So we should understand how powerful Prabhupada's ISKCON is as a society. But within the society, there are, micro-societies? Or, in other words, you find your right association. It's not that, okay, this went wrong or these people didn't work out, that means the whole thing is useless. Then you find others and you keep going with equal, if not even more, enthusiasm. One should search out a society dedicated to Krishna consciousness and learn how to discharge devotional service. In this way, he can cut off his attachment to the material world. One cannot become detached from the attraction in the material world simply by dressing himself in saffron cloth. He must become attached to the devotional service of the Lord. Therefore, one should take it very seriously. that devotional service, as described in the 12th chapter, is the only way to get out of this false representation of the real tree. 14th chapter, the contamination of all kinds of processes by material nature is described. Only devotional service is described as purely transcendental. Paramam Mama. Every nook and corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. Om Namo Bhagavate Vasudevaya. Vas means place, the Lord of every place. Thus, I wandered in all different the mining towns, the pasture lands, the mountain hermitages. Narada Muni is a 5-year-old boy after he was blessed by the Lord, and the Bhaktivedanta sages. One should gain strength in mind and confidence by traveling all over God's creation. One should know that the Lord is one's protector in every place. Another time, one soon to be a devotee or aspiring devotee with more or less like a kind of Mr. Bojangles hippie, What is the use? Everywhere a tree, everywhere some water, everywhere some mountain. It's all the same thing. Best you just surrender in a temple and perform devotional service. Anyway, the spiritual world is every corner is the property of the Supreme Lord. All right. Any questions or comments? No.
So there are different devotees who have different issues with ISKCON who were disciples who left and joined other Gaudiya Vaishnava movements. How should we think of those people and how should we deal with those people?
Cordially. And it's also, how will such persons reciprocate with you if they, I have like one ex-godbrother and he just can't help himself, just like a barracuda or an alligator, It's like, I the ISKCON and the ISKCON gurus and this and that, and such and such, blah, 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 blah. You need to come over here and you get disassociated. I say, look, I'm happy where I am, like this and like that, and this particular person, he's like, had quite a life for himself, divorced a couple of times, and just like, always like, but if it, I'm respecting, if some, there are many branches in our Saraswat line, and there's many devotees who have naturally become initiated, especially in India, because that was their association and that was Krishna's arrangement for them. But what is that? Expatriates, or right? They've left, or they, and I'll say something that. The so-called zonal acharya system, which came to an end 34 years ago, okay, all right, there's nothing really been that bad or that wrong or that strange or that oppressive since. So, I meet a lot of devotees younger than myself, and they say, oh, this and that, and blah, blah, blah. And I'm thinking, man, you're just like a crybaby, What do you complain? You didn't have it hard, Whereas on the other hand, I have like contemporaries who were like initiated